Welcome to Oyana, a teenager's journey to self-love. Our mission is to inspire, educate and empower, helping teenagers and parents to navigate through life and connect with their inner self. I'm your host and transformational coach, Carol Oakley, and thank you for tuning in. And if it's your first time, welcome. And if you're a regular listener, welcome back and thank you for your support. And I hope you're all doing well out there. Now, today I have Lacey C.Clark. Now, Lacey inspires women of all backgrounds to stay true to self. Her beliefs in self-love and empowerment are reflected in her thriving brands, Phenomenally You, Phenomenal Everywhere, and Sisters Sanctuary. Collectively, the brands impact the world by providing inspirational messages laced with self-esteem boosting content. With a career span of over 2 decades, Lacey's work has reached over 20 countries and 5 continents, touching the lives of millions both online and offline. Now, Lacey is here to talk about her 8-step empowerment system, Phenomenally You, a young woman's guide to being safe, smart, and successful in college. So without further ado, let me say hello to Lacey. Hey, Lacey.
Hi, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Thank you for, agreeing to come on my platform and to share your words of wisdom. I really appreciate that.
Well, we're on the same page in terms of synergistically the self-love for teenagers, so I'm all about it.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Now, Lacey, you're in Mexico. I mean, tell us how's Mexico doing? I don't know how it's doing, but I'm sure the weather's lovely and beautiful there at the moment.
Well, actually, yes, it is beautiful, but actually, interesting enough, every place in Mexico is not a beautiful place in terms of weather. There's some cold places in Mexico. And of course, there's some hot places that are very humid and all the above. But where I am happens to be an amazing weather. We have like spring weather kind of all the time. So it's like around, right now, it's probably about 78-ish.
Okay, that's nice. Beautiful.
Fahrenheit, that use Celsius, but Fahrenheit, 78. 70, 80. So usually it's around that. And then it gets really cold at night, though. At night, you got to put on a coat. People have to put on a coat. Like they put 50s, sometimes high 40s. So it definitely gets chilly.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'd rather to have spring weather during the day. So I can wear my sandals and wear a summer dress and just feel free. That's
it's a little lighter. Sure, it is definitely light to just kind of.
Absolutely. Now, Lacey, I just like to go with the flow. Let's just see where the conversation takes us. But before I kind of get into sort of really deep into this conversation, I always ask my guests this question. What would you like people to take away from your talk and why would they listen?
Well, if you have a teenager, specifically a teenage girl, and she's college bound, specifically in the US, if not, then she's college bound wherever you are, I think it's a really important conversation to have about how to be safe, smart, and successful in college, because so much happens in college with young women. There are a couple of studies that are published specifically by USA Today saying that young women actually drop in confidence from their freshman year to their senior year. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things happen between freshman year and senior year. And so I think that this talk or this conversation is really about how we can support our young women in being phenomenal and to be safe, smart, and successful. Because I think that there are so many challenges that are along the way before they get to graduation and then enter life. So into life. So I think this conversation will be really rich and important for empowering our young women.
Wonderful. And just for our non-US listeners, because I know the US kind of labels their kind of years differently to, I like to say, here in the UK. So college, what age group is college?
Mm-hmm. So in college is after high school. I'm not sure when your high school is, but it's around 17, 18, depending on how early you graduate. So usually you can enter at 17 years old, and then you usually exit around 21-ish, 22-ish, depending.
Okay.
But obviously, if you take a year off or 2 years off and you go in, you can always, those numbers can fluctuate. But I would say that this information today is relevant for young women who are college bound. Mm-hmm. And I would say that it definitely lays a blueprint for young women entering into the world of young adulthood.
Okay. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And can you just share a little bit about your background before we kind of get into it?
Sure, sure. Okay, so let's see, specifically as it relates to this. I grew up in North Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is where I'm from, the US.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know Jill Scott and Bill Cosby and Kevin
Uh-huh.
Hart. All these folks are from North Philadelphia. I grew up in North Philadelphia, and I didn't really see, my mother was a positive influence in my life, but my community, or what I saw on television and media, was really a lot of images that were highly sexualized. And you see that obviously right now, highly sexualized. And it really kind of had like a box of what womanhood was supposed to be. And so even though I was very proud to be Black, I went to this place called Freedom Theater, which was really helped us really have an awesome cultural connection. I had a challenging time understanding like how womanhood was supposed to be respected because of what I saw in the media. And so after going to college, I came back to my city, Philadelphia, and I saw young women struggling with the same kind of questions and identity issues as it relates to what womanhood really is. And is it all about just being naked all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just sexuality? Like, is that all we have to offer? Like, what else is there when it comes down to young womanhood, et cetera? And so I created a company called Sister Sanctuary because I really wanted young women to understand that the things that they were seeing. And at that time, when I got back from school, we were in the height of hip hop, with the bees and the hoes. I mean, it's still the same today, but it was really
Yeah.
like, bitch and hold this and, drop, bend over and this, that was the kind of like, the culture of what womanhood was supposed to be. And so I wanted to create a sanctuary from that brutal kind of treatment or those brutal definitions of what womanhood was. So Sister Sanctuary was my company, and I created that company to really support young women and women to know that they are worth so much more than what media says.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, media says about Black women. So
Wonderful.
that's the kind of short version.
Fantastic. And how did you, when you created Sister Sanctuary, what did you, just very top line, because we are going to be focusing on Phenomenally You, what was your support? How are you supporting them at that time?
Great question. That's a great question, because so many things we want to do and we don't have enough support. So that's a great, great question. So when I first started, I used to do these monthly events. And they were actually intergenerational, because the intention was to get the support of the community to really, kind of support our young women. Like, young women are not in a bubble. They have people around them that are creating their models. Their models. And so I wanted to engage young women, teens, and also the mothers and the aunties and the cousins. And so when I started Sister Sanctuary, I created an event that was a support system for the girls. But my support, my mother was a major, always is, amazing woman, major support, my mother. But I also had the support from the community, because when they heard about what I was doing, people wanted to kind of jump in, pitch in and help and say, what can I do? Because everybody was just exhausted by the imagery. I think people are exhausted now, but it's like more acceptable,
Right.
Which is more crazy. Back in the day, we kind of had a resistance, like, no, this is ridiculous. Like, we want to have better representation. And I think now, like, we've kind of like, people who resisted it, the young generation came in and then they're edifying it. And it's like, we're just tired. So it's like this whole, cycle. So to directly answer your question, I would say my mother, I would say the community did support me. And I would also say that I had, there was a program called Past Step. It was in Philadelphia, and actually was sponsored by Temple University.
Yeah.
And they were really helpful in being, kind of a cheerleading section, if you will, and also just in terms of people basically advocating for healthier images for young Black women, young women, et cetera. So that was the support I had when I was developing, because they heard what I was doing. I was like, yeah, this is important. I want to help you. So I did get that help.
Amazing. Because like anything as big as this, you just can't do it on your own, can you? No. Yeah, I can relate to that one. You can't do it on your own.
It's a lot. It's a lot, especially when you're going against the grain. Mm-hmm. Because when you say something else outside of what everyone else is promoting, it's like you're going upstream and the rest is going downstream. You know what I mean? So you need as much love around the situation as possible. So,
and you got to sort of constantly remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah, just to keep that momentum going. Most definitely. Now, I see you use phenomenal in a lot of your branding. You have phenomenally you, which we'll be talking about, and phenomenal everywhere. Tell us about it. Tell us about how you got to that word.
Of course. So phenomenal woman, which is Maya Angelou's poem. When I was coming up, I actually studied theater, and so Phenomenal Everywhere is my solo show about my life. It's a solo theater show about my life. And so I studied theater coming up. And Maya Angelou obviously was a very big, powerful person for me. And that poem was really powerful for me. It's actually one of the poem that I used to enter into my high school to get into the drama department. So you had to audition. And so I used that poem and then a poem from For Color Girls, which was, I forgot, Lady in Red, I think it was. It's the one thing I don't need is any more apologies. That monologue, you know, that monologue. So those are the two things I used to audition for my high school. And so it's Phenomenal Woman and then Lady in Red. And so that was kind of like the framework for what I wanted to bring to the world, give birth, and what I want to do. I want to give birth to this concept to the world. This concept of how do we have phenomenal young women? You know what I mean? How do we edify the extraordinary? How do we edify the things that are amazing? Specifically for, again, I want to iterate women, but I also want to iterate Black women, because again, these stereotypes can be stuck with us in a lot of different ways. And so the phenomenal concept really is about how extraordinary we are in general. But also just to edify and remind folks that when you see me passing, it also make you proud. Like that's the line from that poem. Like it's like just edifying that grace and that essence of being great and the essence of being extraordinary and standing out. And so the phenomenal branding, Phenomenal Everywhere, which is the name of the solo show, and then Phenomenally You, which is the 8S empowerment system for young women, etc. It really is edifying that same point. You know what I mean? Being extraordinary everywhere, phenomenal everywhere, and then Phenomenal You. I am extraordinary. I am,
yes,
I am phenomenally, phenomenal everywhere. Phenomenal. I'm phenomenal everywhere, but I'm also phenomenally me.
Yes, you know what I mean? Being you. Well, I love it. Love that. So tell us about your phenomenally you. Your 8-step guide. I mean, and obviously it's all about empowerment. Tell us all about it from start to finish, because it is about helping girls have a smooth transition to college, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say college and life, because sure, because I think that there's a lot of bumps in the road from high school to college that are not really told to you prior to going. Specifically, this is your first time as a young woman being away from your family and what the incubator of your life and the incubator of your community, and you're in a whole different world now. And everything that you've been taught is really going to be tested, right? Because now it's new friends, peer pressure, new relationships, sexuality, all this stuff is coming up. It's all, you're giving birth to this stuff when you're in this new environment. And I think that transition is critical because it sets the foundation, not only for you in those years that you're going to be studying and actually learning and trying to find out where your career is and studying your career, but for your life and your transitions as a young woman. Because before you've actually moved from high school, you were a girl in the care of your parents. And now you are moving into young womanhood and you learn how to care for yourself. So Phenomenally You is an 8S empowerment system. And basically what it does is it gives young women a blueprint to really help them navigate their college years, but also their life with phenomenality, with self-esteem, with self-worth, and with safety. And so that's kind of the short version to what it is. And so there's 8 S's that break that down.
Fantastic. And how has it been received, this system? How's it going down with people?
was really powerful. So we have, support on both sides. So the girls and the administration from high schools and the like, and colleges and the like, because what you'll find is that you'll know that high school and college prep programs are so adamant on preparing you academically for college. You know what I mean? They basically, in the States, they have the ACTs and the SATs. I'm not sure what the equivalent is in the UK, but there's like all of these things that you have to work toward to build this academic, know-how to be transitioning into this new experience. And, And so in that transition, there is little conversation about, well, how are you going to navigate this world socially? Like, do you have the wherewithal to attract or pick the right mate? Do you have the wherewithal to understand that if you're going to a party and you're going to be social, you should actually have some support systems around you so you're not there by yourself? You understand what I mean? Like, are you conscious of, how to be smart as you're studying? And so that's one of the S's. So S is smart. One S is called smart. It's like, how are you studying? So therefore you're actually being able to take advantage of what's around you in terms of your professor and the assistant and the office hours and the tutors and all the things that are available to you. Some people don't take advantage of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Safety is another S.
Yes.
And it's like, again, there are many experiences that happen on college campuses. Of course, sexual assault is one of them. And so you talk about, young women being in environments that aren't safe for them, or being around people who are taking advantage of them because they are naive.
Yes. Yeah.
So like being mindful that all these things are part of the territory. And so when you know these things and you know how to navigate this territory, you can actually be phenomenal, not only in college, but in life. So these are some of the concepts in Phenomenally You.
Wonderful. And so the system, how does it work in terms of, it's 8 steps? Do you just go through it at your own pace, or is it like a timely system?
I just realized that I didn't answer the full question. So basically saying how's it being received. So the girls love it.
Yeah.
So let me answer that. I'm gonna finish that other question and
Okay, no worries.
The girls love it because it gives them a guide. It gives them something to like, because they already have anxiety. Right? They already have anxiety and they're excited, but then it's like, oh no, like, I don't know if I made the right, they're just kind of like nervous by this whole experience. And so it's like, all right, well, if I have this guidebook, it's like anything. If you know that you are driving down to wherever you're going and you have a map or you have some tools, you don't have to worry about getting lost. You know that basically you make a right here, a left here, and go straight down that way.
Yeah.
So and so to answer your question, the girls love it. And the other piece is that I have the support of the administration of those who actually are, working the college prep programs with the girls, because again, they understand the void with the social and emotional aspects of college. You know what I mean? Like how they don't teach that in college prep programs. It's always just academics and be smart and all the above. So that's the answer to that question. To make sure I got all that out, which is,
that's great.
It solves a problem of, well, what about if they go to school and they get pregnant the first year? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is some of the stuff that happens with young women that we don't talk about in college prep programs. And how does that derail what your vision is? You know what I mean? Okay. But if you're mindful of sexuality and sex, then you know how to take responsibility for the sexual realities you're having in college. So you see what I mean? Like, these are kind of things that are being talked about. In the Phenomenally You system. So to answer your question, so there are 8 S's, and the 8 S's are, I would say, tools more than, stacked one after the other. Now I did order them so it makes sense. So the first S is smart. So when I talk about, dealing with, study habits and understanding how to navigate, what will promote success as a student. So we have that, but from a strategic standpoint. So not just I'm going in and studying really hard and hopefully get good grades, but really, again, taking advantage of all the resources around you on campus where you can actually study smart. The second S is safety. So it really is about understanding how to deal with life-saving techniques. So again, you're talking about parties, right? You're talking about sexuality. You're talking about relationships. You're talking about domestic violence that happens on campus. You're talking about violent, all these different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So did you answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's up to you, the individual, to go through it at their own pace. So,
Well, I wouldn't. I mean, I say that all of these S's are tools to be able to integrate into your new experience.